guys, my name is Oded, and in this podcast we'll speak about software development in the field of medical device, pharmaceuticals, and healthcare with industry-leading experts. I hope you find this content useful. Let's start. Today I have the great pleasure to have a real QMS expert with us, Susanne Manz. Has written books on the topic, has done it for many years, led the organization in audits and in complex regulatory situations. Susanne, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Maybe you can tell the audience a bit about your personal story, your history.
Thanks, Odette. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I've been in the medical device industry over 30 years now. That makes me sound very old. But I started out at GE and then Johnson & Johnson and later on at Medtronic. And I since left the corporate life, and now I am a consultant helping smaller companies establish their quality systems. In that time, I've done a lot of training, and I've written a book on quality management systems, and I hope I can share some good advice with you today.
Perfect. So let's just dive in. I remember from reading your books, you put a lot of emphasis about quality system effectiveness and efficiency. Can you elaborate about this?
Yes, I think one of the key aims for a quality management system is to make sure that it's effective, make sure that we get the desired results, the right outcomes in terms of complying with the regulations or international standards, and in terms of getting products that are safe and effective for our customers. But to have an effective quality management system, I think you also need to be efficient. You need to do it right the first time. And if you don't do it right the first time, then you have to do it over and over again. You have to take corrective action, and that increases your inefficiency. So we want to do it right the first time so we don't have to do it over and over again. And that's what makes the organization feel that quality is a burden, is if they have to do things over and over again, or if we've made our quality system too restrictive.
And because you said the organization feels it's a bothersome. From my experience, another reason that sometimes the organization feels it's a bothersome, especially with product development, is the organization is using tools, is using their software tools to develop, and the quality is considered an organization that lives in the document, something that is alienated from them. And if they need to produce document, they need to produce it for the quality system, but not for their product development. So when you say efficient and effective, where do you see those tools and the way that those organizations are working, regardless, even if there wasn't any QMS system? How do you make their feeling that they are doing things efficiently and at the same time being effective from a compliance perspective?
Well, one of the problems is that many of the people in the organization don't understand why the regulations or standards exist. They are in a state of what I call unconscious incompetence. They just don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how incompetent they are. So that's one of the key roles of the quality organization, is to increase that awareness and take the employees from the stage of unconscious incompetence to conscious competence, where they know what they need to know, they know why it's important, and they know that they need to follow internal procedures consistently and provide records that they did so. In the quality world, we're in a highly regulated medical device industry. The only way we can prove we did something is to provide adequate records. So every employee needs to know that they have a responsibility to maintain and protect records.
Right. Okay, so if we take it a bit further, where do you see that those common mistakes, those common places where the organization are kind of failing in creating that system that you describe as effective and efficient?
A lot of the common mistakes that I see is that companies don't pay attention to organizational culture. And culture is not something that happens by accident. It can be nurtured and shaped, and it starts with management at the top, explaining their quality policy, their vision for making products that are safe and effective for customers, their vision to make sure we follow the laws or the regulations or the standards where we operate or where we sell products. So management has to set that tone at the top, and they need to create quality policies and objectives to reflect that.
So why do you think in many cases still quality and compliance are perceived as bureaucratical, as an things that are preventing them from proceeding? So why do you think there's still such a bad rep? Probably.
Because companies have implemented quality systems that are not efficient. So employees feel like they have to do things over and over again. They feel like they have to do things they don't understand why. And they feel like there are extra burdens to doing those things. Some companies implement procedures that are inflexible and create more problems than they prevent. And they don't develop a quality system that works well. So employees don't understand it. So we have to make sure employees understand why we have a quality system. And then we have to make sure it's an efficient and effective quality system.
Okay, so in order to move to that place where we have the effective and efficient one, what are the main capabilities? What are the owners? Who's the owner of those processes? How do you see that utopical QMS, that mature organization that is doing it right? How does it look? Can you share that a bit from your experience?
Yeah, so in a mature organization, there are several key roles that people need to understand. So in a mature organization, management at the top is responsible for setting the tone, the quality policy, and the culture. Right below that is the management representative. And the management representative helps to create the quality system, the quality manual that describes the structure of the quality management system. And they need help from process owners. So quality organization cannot by themselves create an efficient and effective quality management system. They need process owners. And I think in a company with a mature quality system, process owners know their responsibilities. So you might have a process owner for product development, design and development, a process owner for manufacturing operations. And those process owners need to embrace their process, be the subject matter expert on their process, know how to transfer the requirements from the regulation into internal procedures with adequate level of detail on how to do things. Then we have individuals within the organization who need to follow the processes. So all of the individuals are responsible for following procedures, for keeping their training up to date, for maintaining and protecting records. So all of those roles play a part in a quality management system. But I think the biggest failure is the process owners who don't want to be told by quality how to do things. And they shouldn't be if they truly embrace their process and have translated the regulations into their own procedures. They should be responsible for following those procedures. They should be responsible for monitoring the health of their process and for reporting it to management review. So when there are problems within their process, they need to report on it in management review. And the most effective process owners that I've seen are the ones who are transparent and open about sharing the health of their process. And when they need it, they ask for resources. And they're not afraid to do that. That's a more healthy and more mature quality system. We don't want the quality organization to have to play the role of the policeman all the time.
Right. But really, when you describe that mature organization, it's really it's very interesting because you are saying, look, even the responsibility for interpreting the regulation and taking it into your processes, this is the process owner responsibility. This is the SME, this is the R&D manager responsibility, and not a quality somebody with a quality hat that has to say, oh, I'm representing compliance, I'm representing the auditor to make sure that everything is compliant. And I feel that maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that some of the organizations that are failing in that, both sides are guilty. So on the one hand, this process owner, the R&D manager, he wants to develop software. Okay, just tell me what to do, and I'll try to give you those artifacts. Just let us work and do our things. And the quality people also like it because they have a job. They go and read the regulation and make sure that it's compliant. So they feel that they contribute. But in a way, they are doing damage because they are preventing the real person that needs to take the ownership from taking it by doing the job for him. Is it fair statement?
That's right. And so both, like you said, both parties are guilty, and you can't change one without changing the other. So it takes a little bit of a dance to get both of the people from a immature concept to a more mature state. And that's one of the things we need to understand is where we're at and how we're going to get to that future state.
Okay, and you describe in the book, and you touched, maybe you can elaborate a bit more about this. How do you see the relationship between quality and compliance? Because for quality unit people, it's very easy to understand compliance. Okay, there is this regulation. FDA said that we need to do this. Let me make sure that you do it. But when it comes to quality, it's much vaguer. It's most of it is really at the end of the people who design the product, if it's a product, right, or who test it.
Could be design or manufacturing.
Or manufactured, right?
Yeah, and both of those have critical role in achieving product quality that products that meet specification and that are safe and effective for our customers.
So again, about compliance and quality, are they the same in your perspective, or is there a difference between saying I can be compliant, but quality is a different issue, or they are interchangeable?
They're different things. Compliance means complying with the regulations or the standards in the markets that we operate. So we do have to comply with the regulations. And I think one of the key changes in industry today is we're realizing that compliance alone is not enough to result in product quality. So the medical device regulations in Europe have changed. In the US, the FDA has been quite vocal in the last few years about what they call their case for quality. Compliance alone is not enough. It's just the baseline entry point. If we're complying with the regulations, that should help us get better quality outcomes. And that's, I think, one of the key points that we always need to keep in the back of our mind when we're creating a quality system. It's all about making sure we're getting quality outputs and safe and effective product for our customers. And that's where management can play a key role in setting that culture.
And where do you see those feedback loops that you describe in your book, and the CAPA process even in general fits into that quality improvement, continuous quality improvement?
So one of the things we have to do is be self-aware. We need to self-identify our problems. And if we can't self-identify our problems, then we're doomed to be notified by outsiders, by the FDA or our notified bodies. And that's always very late, right? If the FDA tells you that, it's very late in the process. We want to self-identify, and we want to do it as early as possible. So one of the ways we can self-identify is through internal audit. And that's where an independent person from the quality or compliance organization conducts internal audits of key processes like design or manufacturing. That's even a little bit too late. What we really want to do is become aware of problems even earlier. And that's what I mean when I talk about the feedback loop. The sooner we become aware of a problem, the less we have to fix. So this is a key place where process owners can play a role. And instead of waiting for internal audit to come and tell them what's wrong, the process owners should be monitoring the health of their process. And they should be reporting that in management review. And if we're doing it really early, as soon as a problem occurs, we fix it. We're self-aware. But if we wait till internal audit identifies it, maybe we have multiple records to fix. We have more corrections to make. And if we wait as long as when the FDA tells us about our problem, and we get a 483, and now we have to correct lots of documents, and we have to tell the FDA about it in our 483 response, and they sift through our response, then it becomes much more difficult. So it's better to self-identify, and it's better to do it sooner rather than later.
Perfect. And CAPA, where do you see CAPA? Because I don't want to say Kappa also has a bad reputation, but sometimes the Kappa, I think you said in your book, deaths by Kappa or something.
Death by
Maybe
Kappa is what some people call it. And that's true. Kappa has sometimes become a very bureaucratic exercise in a lot of companies. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Because people misuse the Kappa process. One of the key reasons that Kappa is seen as bureaucratic is we put everything into Kappa. We put our little problems and our big problems in Kappa. We don't have enough resources, and we've created this lots of forms and IT systems to fill out, and it's difficult. If you're somebody who doesn't deal with the Kappa process regularly, it can be seen as cumbersome and bureaucratic.
But here we solve more unemployment problem. We create a new job. There is Kappa coordinator to help those people who can understand the system.
Yes, and a lot of companies have to do that. So one of the first things to remember is we don't have to put everything into our Kappa system. We need to have a prioritization mechanism. So only real problems that require the rigor of a Kappa go into the Kappa system. So we need to prioritize. The regulations, the FDA regulations are very clear in saying our actions need to be commensurate with risk. So we need to make sure we prioritize maybe low, medium, and high risk Kappas. ISO 13485 puts a strong emphasis on risk. So we don't have to treat every problem the same. We can use our non-conforming material process to deal with minor issues. But when we have a real issue, we should put it into our Kappa process because that's a rigorous closed loop corrective action process. And when we have a real problem, like a recall, yes, that's worthy of a going in the Kappa system and having good tools and methodology to do investigations and root cause analysis and really make it work. Another problem I see is that companies use IT systems for Kappa, and there's a lot of great IT systems out there. But almost invariably, the company takes their broken Kappa process and tries to make the IT system enable it, and it doesn't work. Fix your Kappa process and then automate it. Don't automate a broken process.
You're preaching to the choir. How many times I saw that, they really, the system come with best practice, and they really amend it to meet their current existing broken processes in many cases. And then when there is an upgrade, because there was so many vanilla customization to the vanilla, and so many scripts that were created specifically for their unique needs that nobody in the industry has identified before, it always fails, and it's always more validation in those steps. It's always more difficult to make any modifications, and because it's so already modified. And the out-of-the-box report, they don't work because you had to decide on so many different fields that are added and calculated differently.
Exactly. And I have seen numerous big companies overly customize these out-of-the-box IT systems. And I think they create more problems than they solve that way. So Kappa needs to work for your company size and your structure. So what works for a small startup company is not going to work for a great big multinational company. We need to create the process, make sure the process works, and then when we're big enough, then we automate it.
Okay, so last question to follow up on what you just said about those small companies versus the big companies, and I think you touched it a little bit also in the book. When a big company buys a small company, and many times those small company has product in the market, so they've been audited. They come with an argument that says, look, I've always played by the rules. I'm selling products in the market. Why are you coming now with such a more cumbersome processes that slows me down? And you are telling me that this is a regulatory requirement. Where is the truth? The truth is with those big corporates that are meeting those startups and saying, look, what you've done, unacceptable, not in our school. Or how do you see that?
Yeah, that's an ongoing problem. And I've worked in some of the very big companies that do acquisitions. And a couple of things happen. And sometimes when there's an acquisition, management says, leave them alone. They've got a good quality system. Don't impose our bureaucracy on them. And there's a couple mistakes with that. There's this assumption that they've got a good quality system because we don't know. You don't know that. So you have to do your due diligence first. Just because they didn't get a 483 in the past doesn't mean they're perfect. Okay. Second of all, if we acquire these companies and they're using different IT systems, they're using different metrics, we can't measure them or understand the risk of those quality systems. So at some point, we do want to harmonize them. If you don't harmonize them, then when you do management review, you're comparing apples to oranges. So you don't really know what you've got. You don't know what your risks are or where to put your resources. So at some point, I do think you need to do good due diligence on your acquisitions. And I do think you ultimately need to incorporate them into your quality systems so that you can grow them in the long term.
Right.
But it's an ongoing challenge.
And what, just to finalize on this one, look, when they had a small QMS, and you speak about the efficient QMS, efficient QMS is also allowing that process owner to do modification as he understands the process better, as he decides that this is the better practice, he modify the process. Once they come into the big corporate, they can't really change the process anymore. It's really given from some headquarter, maybe in a different continent. And this, how do you see that problem when it comes back to your discussion about effective and efficient QMS system?
Well, if you want that new acquisition to ultimately be part of your multinational company or your bigger organization, you do have to integrate. And they sometimes see that as difficult. But a lot of times, these small companies want to be acquired as well. In fact, I think that's a goal for a lot of them, to develop some new technology and then get acquired, and they make a lot of money for that. So I do think you need to integrate them, but you have to have a plan for how to do that and how they're going to become part of the organization. Usually when a big company acquires a small company, it's because they have a hole in their product line, or they need to acquire a specific technology or intellectual property. And to use that effectively, you do have to harmonize them into the overall quality system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but still for a process owner on that side, I mean, even if it's not a new acquisition, when you've got such a big corporate and the procedures are at the corporate level, how the local process owner can have the agility to modify the processes to make it more efficient for his specific needs. How do you see that tension between in multi-sites, big corporate that have one QMS?
Well, that you're assuming that the small entity needs to make changes to make it more efficient. I hope that that's not always the case. Sometimes the corporate systems may be more efficient or more effective because they've passed the test of time. But if you want to make the process owner at that little acquisition, if you want to make their voice heard, one of the ways you can do is create councils for a particular process. So maybe you have a council for design quality, and it may have some corporate people on it and some people from the local side. And they can talk and share best practices and ultimately come up with the best solution.
Right. So, but the bottom line is you still see better value in one QMS per organization than have multiple QMSs for the smaller units.
Multiple QMSs, you need to make a deliberate decision on what you're going to do there. And based on that deliberate decision, it's going to shape how you do internal audit and reporting of information. So there are different ways you can do it, but make a deliberate, conscious decision. And based on that decision, decide how you're going to become aware and how you're going to report information in management review.
Right. Perfect. So thank you very much. It was really a fascinating talk, and I learned a lot. I'm sure that anybody listening will also enjoy it. Can you share a little bit how, if people have more questions, if they can reach out, or where can they find the book, if they want to further reading, or there's some other publications that you...
My book is called Medical Device Quality Management Systems, Strategy and Techniques for Improving Efficiency and Effectiveness. You can find it on Amazon and Elsevier. And if you're interested in some of my training, I do a lot of online training and webinars. You can Google me for some of those things, or please connect with me on LinkedIn and ask any questions. You can reach me directly there.
Thank you very much. And,
thank you, my pleasure.